Please, before we get into headlines, I did want to ask you because there's been a lot going on in the industry, trade publications, and everything about PFAS because California passed a law regarding minimum levels of PFAS in apparel. I did some research on that. It's like 100 parts per.
Oh, so they can have some. I thought it was like completely okay.
There's a minimum. It's like 100 parts per million that is acceptable. I'm not a scientist. I have no frame of reference for what that is exactly. I actually went looking around to see like what is currently out there and couldn't find like a specific number. But bottom line is, if you want to sell stuff in California, which is the fifth largest economy in the world, you have to have a certain number. You can't exceed a certain level of PFAS in your textiles or apparel.
Have you seen anything about how that's going to be regulated? Like, are they going to check your jackets?
That's a good point. I'm sure there will be some sort of. I mean, they look for fruit in your car when you're driving to the state. I'm sure they'll figure it out, right? So
I have no idea how that works.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Well, I just want to ask you, what are you going to do anything about PFAS in your life, personally?
No.
Because we talked about this before we hit record. I think I get it sounds like it's a worthy initiative. If you go back and learn about what PFAS are and what they can do, not good stuff. Probably a colossal mistake on our part.
Sure.
In hindsight, right? I'm sure at the time it seemed like this revolutionary thing. Like, how could it be bad?
Anything plastic, the same.
Right.
Same thing.
Right. Well, maybe not like hospital stuff, I guess, for plastic. That might be the one
I
area.
guess. Yeah, but I mean, opening that door, period, was probably not something we should have done. But we didn't know. And
glass is pretty cool. Can't we just have glass bottles? But
that's kind of why. It's like, okay, I don't know. I've covered I don't know if it's considered a PFAS, but whatever like flame retardant materials are intense.
Mm-hmm.
That a couple years ago was kind of a thing where like Mountain Hardware came out with one that doesn't have it. I think Nemo is about to do a bunch, or maybe they've made one or two that doesn't either.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, if you read the science, the chemicals are really, really bad for you. But it's pretty difficult to parse like how much time you have to spend in the tent to really have that be an effect.
Right.
But
right.
I guess at the end of the day, isn't that the case with like literally everything in the modern world? I mean, you probably shouldn't touch a lot of the things that we touch as much as we do. I mean, it's tough. I don't know. I don't know where you. I mean, I live in a place where there's probably plenty of people who sew their own clothes and like get water from creeks and stuff like that, because there's a lot of like older hippies here.
Yeah.
Maybe they're right. Maybe they've been right the whole time. I don't know. I just don't know what else I'm supposed to do about things anymore. I'm not going to go buy. I mean, I don't really have to. I'm sure I will get some PFAS free jackets pretty soon to wear, and I'm sure they'll be great, I guess. But if I had to buy it myself, I don't think I would I'm not going to get rid of my PFAS jackets and go buy PFAS free stuff.
That's kind of the point I want to make. It's not to say that this isn't a worthy initiative. Clearly it is. If you learn about PFAS, and it does, there's definitely levels of they knew for a long time before anybody decided to do anything. Yeah. All of the stuff that typically follows these kinds of things exists. And if you go to communities where it's in the air and it's consumed in high quantities, there's real repercussions to people from these chemicals. But I think it has been an unasked question of, is there an expectation that everybody just needs to go out and buy another, kit? I've been wearing the same, shells for over 10 years as one of the first ones I got when I started working at Polar Tech. And now that I don't work in the industry anymore, it's perfectly fine. It's a Patagonia jacket. It's great. I'm sure if you looked at the membrane in it, loaded with PFAS, I'm not planning on going and swapping it out. And I don't even know. I feel like that's also a conundrum, because it's like, well, all right, if you read about how PFAS interacts in textiles, it's pretty locked into place. There's not a lot of transfer between the garment and the human versus like scraping bits off a Teflon pan in your eggs and eating it kind of thing. So is it better for me to go ditch this jacket and then get another jacket? Or is it better for me just to continue to use this jacket because I know from a sustainability standpoint, that's the right thing to do too?
Yeah. It's like I spent so much time battling, not really, like arguing with people in comments about things on social media where they'll make fun of, a celebrity for flying somewhere. And they're like, but here I am with my paper straw. And it's like, well, those are two different issues, right?
Yeah.
Like carbon emissions are not the same as plastic pollution. So you should use a paper straw, and they shouldn't be flying, but that's not like, but point is that like you have to kind of pick like which thing are you going to be the most concerned about. And like for me personally, for whatever reason, overconsumption and resource waste is a bigger deal than whatever toxic tiny amounts of toxic chemicals I'm ingesting by wearing this jacket. That would be like if I'm gonna draw a line in the sand, it's gonna be let's keep from making so much crap rather than I prefer that didn't have PFAS, but I'm not going to like buy new stuff just because it doesn't. I mean, I feel the same way about buying an electric car to a certain degree. Like,
sure.
I mean, I have 2 cars that work just fine. I'm not going to like go buy a new one. The math doesn't balance out.
No, and I mean, I just got a new car, and I didn't get an electric car because I wanted to make sure I had one where I had the range and I had the ability to put gas in it if we wanted to go on a longer trip. And we haven't had any issues with it, but it's also not entirely convenient sometimes, And so it's just, I think we need to be a little more forgiving of ourselves as well, because like to your point, like if the paper straw is an option, of course you should choose the paper straw. If you don't have to use something that's made out of plastic, you shouldn't. Now, if I'm at a baseball game and I want a bottle of water, I'm going to buy a bottle of water, and I'm not going to feel bad about it. And there was a time when I probably was like, well, I should probably just wait till I get home, and it's like, because then I'm not using it. And then you start spiraling, right? These rabbit holes of like, I have to solve the climate problems and the sustainability problems because I have some knowledge that maybe most people don't. You don't, it's like, it's going to take a long time to figure this stuff out.
But that's kind of, that's why something like this is good, because it's like, okay, we shouldn't be using them. We know that. That's obvious. Right. Great. So now they won't be in any of the new stuff that you need. So, you don't need to go force the issue by getting something new. But there will be probably a time where you do need another rain jacket, and so now you don't have to worry about it.
There'll be a better one, right? Yeah.
Or even if for some reason California was like, you have to have a choice. 50% of the products have to be PFAS free and 50% can be regular. At least you'd have like a choice, and you'd be able to like kind of decide what makes the most sense for you. But you're right. You can't beat yourself up about it. You got to sort of pick your battles. This for me isn't the battle to pick, but I'm really glad it's happening. I mean, it's great.
Same. Yeah. And this is where like, and by the way, this is how it should happen, right? It's being regulated, and there's going to be changes because of it. And if you feel bad about a lot of this stuff, then, go make some phone calls and help get people elected who are going to change it. Because like that's usually the problem. Like the sustainability problem in the fashion industry and thus the outdoor apparel industry could be solved with a little few like pieces of legislation. Like you can't do this stuff anymore. Or you can't make this much anymore, or whatever it is. And no one wants to no one wants to pick that fight.
Well, what's interesting is it's like, okay, so we can do this, right? We can say, okay, no more PFAS, but like. Obviously, that's not that disruptive. I mean, it's disruptive if you work if you work for an apparel maker. I'm sure people will lose jobs over this for various reasons.
Gore is not stoked,
right? And but like largely speaking, it's not like the most disruptive thing in the world to regular life. But it's like, okay, is this really is this the thing that we should be? Why can't we just regulate that all cars get 100 miles to the gallon? Like, why?
Yeah, totally.
I mean, is this all right? Yeah, we can do this, but. Is that really going to matter?
This is going to sound like
be choking to death and an overheated world in 5 minutes. Like, does it matter that we don't have forever chemicals? Like, I don't know.
No, and I don't mean to be reductive, I guess, to like anybody who really worked on this issue and the good work they probably did. But it's like, I don't know. I'm 48. You know how much PFAS I have in my body? Like, I'm probably a third PFAS at this point.
Oh, we all are. I mean, good Lord, man. There's going to be more plastic than fish in the oceans in like 20 years. I'm sure you've heard that before.
Yeah, and I'm never right, exactly. And I'm never going to not be. Like neither are you. Like you and I are. That ship has sailed. Like our kids are screwed. Your youngest one's 2. Yeah, she's already full up on PFAS. Guaranteed.
You can sort of see it crawling around in her a little bit behind the eyes. Daddy, can I get some more PFAS? She's sure, honey.
Yeah. Stick out a jar, start scooping it on.
I remember the videos that I don't know why they made us watch this other than like, hey, aren't you glad we don't do this anymore? But like in school, you'd see like the old footage of them like driving the trucks and just blasting entire neighborhoods with DDT and kids just jumping around in it.
Yes.
You know what?
It's like 100 years ago.
We made a bargain with the devil the moment that we like evolved tool making. It was like, okay, look, eventually you may be able to leave the planet. And eventually, you may be able to leave the solar system, and eventually, maybe even the universe. Who knows? Yeah. Nobody really knows how it works. Yeah. Like this is potentially a road to like ultimate salvation of like human consciousness, whatever. But you're also gonna fuck everything up in the meantime.
Yeah.
And it's like we went down that road. We could happily right now just still be chilling in like the African grasslands, just